Hello everyone. Welcome to the second module of our Typography in Figma course. In this module, we'll delve into the world of beautiful and user-friendly text layout. Layout, or typesetting, is the process of creating layouts for various types of projects, such as print materials, websites, and interfaces. In this lesson, you'll learn how to select fonts for headings and body text, create styles for efficient work, and work with spacing. Let's get started. Text layout plays a crucial role in refining design projects, ensuring clarity and readability. But why is text layout so important? Let's delve into the key reasons. Readability refers to how text is arranged within a page. A well-laid-out text should be comfortable and effortless to read. Text layout helps establish proper font size, line spacing, and other formatting parameters that enhance readability. Visual balance. Text layout contributes to achieving visual balance in layouts by employing a variety of font sizes, colors, weights, and other formatting options. This creates a visually appealing and harmonious design. Efficiency. Effective text layout enhances the efficiency of a layout by ensuring easy access to information. Users can quickly locate and grasp the intended message without encountering any hindrances. Here are a few examples of how text layout can be used to create effective and engaging layouts. On websites, text layout is used to structure information on a page, such as headings, body text, and links. Proper layout guides users effortlessly through the content they seek. In printed materials, text layout is employed to craft visually appealing and informative layouts, such as posters, magazines, or books. A layout draws readers' attention and conveys the message effectively. Within user interfaces, text layout is used to design user-friendly and intuitive interfaces for apps and software. Effective layout enables users to navigate and use the interface's features easily. By understanding the significance of text layout, designers can create layouts that not only look great, but also effectively communicate their intended message and enhance the user experience. Effective text layout hinges on understanding the interplay of size, spacing, and interaction between text elements. These factors dictate how viewers perceive and prioritize information. While numerous tools can enhance text work, grasping content hierarchy and compositional principles is paramount. In this context, the subordination principle in composition emphasizes the importance of a clear hierarchy, where the compositional center stands out, subordinating other elements. To delve deeper into the subordination principle and others, consider enrolling in the Composition in Graphic Design course by Creative Practice. The term hierarchy traces its roots to Greek, signifying the rule of a high priest. The modern understanding of this term denotes the organization and subordination of elements within any system. In design, it dictates how objects are grouped and which element takes precedence. Comprehending and adhering to hierarchy is crucial for crafting effective and comprehensible designs. To grasp the principle of visual hierarchy, imagine a system of nested circles. A larger circle encloses a smaller one. Their positions are inherently clear, but it's physically impossible to fit a larger circle inside a smaller one. In design, the size of elements also indicates their nesting or level of hierarchy. Let's illustrate this using book layout as an example. Letters at the lowest level of the hierarchy are combined to form words. Words create sentences, and sentences form paragraphs. This principle of nesting extends further to chapters, subchapters, and even headings of varying sizes. Comparing these elements, it's easy to determine which element subordinates to which. Therefore, the size of elements, particularly text, indicates their hierarchical level and, consequently, the relative importance of each piece of text. While the level of nesting is typically clear in the case of a book, information arrays are often unorganized. Consider a scenario where you receive a list of data for placement on a news website. This is merely a collection of information, lacking any inherent hierarchy. In such cases, before designing the layout, it's crucial to analyze the content and determine the primary and secondary elements. Let's delve into the principle of structuring text arrays. In this example, Typography for Impactful Websites serves as the headline. Its purpose is to quickly and comprehensively convey the gist of the material. Working with text is a master heading that encompasses the entire topic and all levels of headings. The art of arranging words, headlines that hook, and mood and message are subheadings that explain the essence of each content block. The remaining text is formatted into paragraphs, which are groups of sentences united by a common theme. This text forms the body of the material, tasked with delivering the meaning promised by the headline or subheading. How do text levels differ in web layout? Since we're dealing with the web environment, it's logical to turn to the key elements of HTML markup that can be found in website design. Within the scope of this course, let's focus on the following classification. Font sizes can be divided into the following groups. Fonts up to 16 pixels are called text fonts. Fonts from 24 to 64 are called heading fonts. Fonts larger than 72 are called poster fonts. According to HTML markup principles, there are 6 levels of headings, starting with the first level heading, heading 1 or H1, according to HTML markup tags, and ending with the 6th level heading, H6, body text, descriptive text, and captions. Among headings, each subsequent level is a subheading of the previous one. There can only be one first level heading in a project, the title. When designing headings, it's important to follow the visual hierarchy. The sizes of each subsequent level should be smaller than the previous one. Using this table, we can structure the text array as follows. Level 1. Heading H1. Headline. Alcaraz triumphs at Wimbledon. The most important element as it grabs the reader's attention and conveys the main news information. Let's make this heading the largest. I'll choose a font size of 48 pixels for it. Level 2. Subheading H2. The champion speaks about his shocking straight set win, provides additional details. Let's use a smaller font size for this level, such as 32 pixels. Level 3. Body text. This text contains the main information of the news. It's not as important as the information on levels 1 and 2, but it's still important for understanding the news. I'll use an even smaller font size for this level. According to the previous recommendations, I'll choose 16 pixels. Level 4. This information is less important, but it can still be useful for readers. It contains additional details such as the date, time, and website where it was published. I'll use an even smaller font size for this level 14 pixels. Level 5. Master heading or description. Tennis gives a general idea of the topic, namely the sport being discussed. Let's use a font size of 12 pixels for this element. Now, the reader will know to look at the headline first, then the subheading, then the body text, and finally the additional details and master heading. Another important aspect of layout is visualizing the connection between elements in the design. This helps make the design more understandable and appealing. Here, the rule of the inner and the outer comes in handy. The rule of the inner and the outer is a special case of the proximity principle, which you can learn more about in the composition course. This principle states that we perceive elements as groups if they are located close to each other. This principle can be used to visually group elements in layouts. To group elements correctly, it is worth considering that each of them has 2 spaces. The inner space is the size of the element itself. The outer space is the space around the element. The rule of the inner and the outer says that an element is independent when there are no other elements in its outer space. So, the size of the outer space must be equal to or greater than the size of the inner space. If another element appears within this space, a group is formed. Thus, we perceive elements as groups when the distances between elements are equal to or less than the size of these elements. Moreover, each group has its own space. Accordingly, the 2 groups interact with each other in a similar way. The smaller the distance within this space, the stronger the connection between the groups. The rule can be formulated more concisely as follows. The outer space of an element must be equal to or greater than the inner space. Or even like this, inner less than outer. This principle is quite important when laying out texts. Let's see how it works. For example, in the phrase Alcaraz triumphs, there are 2 groups right away. The kerning, space between letters, here is minimal, which creates a sense of connection between them. The distance between words is slightly larger but still insignificant, so they are also united into a single group. After the first row, there are more. Here, the margins between words in this row and words in the next one are the same. This text can be somewhat uncomfortable to read because we perceive the line as a separate group. Everything that belongs to a separate line becomes internal, and its space becomes external. Therefore, the distance between individual lines should be greater than the distance between words. You already know that the distance between lines is called leading, or line height in Figma. Leading is a very important parameter that affects the readability of the text. The correct size can make the text more comfortable to read and easier to perceive. Important: choose an individual line height for body texts and for headings. Often, designers use the same leading size for all texts in a layout. In fact, for headings, subheadings, and body text, it should be different. The principle is as follows. The larger the font size of the text, for example, a heading or subheading, the less leading should be used. Otherwise, you will get too much white space between the lines in the headings. This table shows the recommended leading or line height ratios for text elements of different levels. With a small leading, the text becomes more compact and dense. This can be good for short text fragments, such as headings or links. So let's set the leading for the headings first. For headings of the first and second levels, I will choose a leading of 100%, so that if they have 2 or more lines, they are compact and perceived as a whole. However, for bigger text fragments, such a distance may be uncomfortable. So for the body text, I will increase the leading up to 150%. I will also set the same leading size for the text of the lowest levels and the descriptive text, that is, the master heading. It's better now, but there's a problem. Now all the elements are arranged quite close to each other. So according to the proximity principle and the rule of the inner and the outer, they are perceived as a group, even though they have different sizes and leading parameters. Let's move on and apply the rule of the inner and the outer to group text elements at the next level. To do this first, let's pay attention to the top part, which will contain the headings. I want to keep these elements as a group, so I will leave a small gap between them. A common practice in web design is to use dimensions that are multiples of 8, to make sure there's enough distance between the 48-pixel headline and the master heading. I'll add some space. It'll be double the size of the master heading, or half the size of the headline itself, which comes out to 24 pixels. To determine the distance between the selected element and another, you can press the Alt key while the element is active and hover over another element. The editor will display the current distance in pixels in a red container. I will position the subheading at a distance of 24 pixels as well. I will make the distance to the subheading the same 24 pixels to separate it from the previous elements. The body text contains 2 paragraphs. Here, I will also apply the rule of the inner and the outer to separate the paragraphs into separate groups. To do this, I will adjust the paragraph spacing, which will be smaller than the font size, 8 pixels. It is not recommended to adjust the paragraph spacing to be equal to or greater than the font size without a specific reason. The distance from the subheading to the body text will be set to 16 pixels to group these elements further together. The 3 lowest level elements can currently have 0 distance between them since they belong to the same level, have the same size, and already have the appropriate leading set. That is, the line height. However, since they are on the same level of hierarchy in this layout, why not place them accordingly on one line? This way I will keep the text on the same level. I can also set a minimum indent of 8 pixels in the publication time group and align it to the right edge of the current layout using the red automatic guides. Here, the website address and publication time are already perceived separately, being on the same level. Let's separate these elements from the body text by a distance of 24 pixels, the same as between the first and second level headings. Text hierarchy helps us visually understand how elements are related to each other. This principle works for any text, regardless of its size. The next parameter we can adjust to emphasize hierarchy in a text is font weight. For headings, a bolder font is often used than for the body text. However, if the text contains subheadings, then the increase in weight should correspond to the level of the content hierarchy. The thinnest font for the body text, bolder font for the subheading, the boldest font for the heading. Let's set the weights for the text elements according to these recommendations. For the first level heading, I will choose black. For the subheading and master heading, bold. For the body text and additional information, regular. Even at this stage, you can see that the hierarchy in the text is successfully built. However, you can apply a few more spot changes to enhance the effect. For example, enhance the contrast in the layout and add graphics. You can make the top headings more contrasting by changing their color, for instance, to green within the fill setting. We can also add decorative elements to the layout, like horizontal lines, to separate the subheading and additional information from the rest of the layout elements. I will add a line and color it the same green using the eyedropper tool. To do this, I will use the eye key and select the color from the heading on the workspace. I will also check the distance from the created divider to the master heading. It is 8 pixels, which is exactly the minimum indent I need. By pressing the Alt key, then clicking on the line and moving the cursor without releasing the right mouse button, I can duplicate the green line and place its copy between the body text and additional details. I will stretch this line across the width of the layout because there is no text on the same level here. When adding these elements, it is important to consider that now we also need to change the distances between the elements, taking the new ones into account. I define the distance from the body text to other groups as 24 pixels. So, I will set the same distance from the divider to the body text and for symmetry from the divider to additional details as well. The separation effect can also be enhanced by setting a less contrasting color for additional information like gray. Thus, by adjusting font parameters and grouping objects visually, you can build a logical and user-friendly structure in a text layout. In addition to the layout principles discussed earlier, the choice of fonts also has a significant impact on the overall impression of a layout. In typography, there are many nuances and features that young specialists forget about or simply do not know. Because of this, sometimes layouts contain texts that are uncomfortable to read. This often happens due to a lack of knowledge about the basic principles, for example, about the types of fonts and how to combine them. Within the framework of this course, we will not delve into the details of the classification and combination of fonts. Within the framework of this masterclass, we will focus on which fonts are best to be used in headings and which are more fitting for body texts. For instance, let's consider a text design where I choose brush script for the heading and lobster for the body text. Due to this choice of fonts, the text has become inconvenient to read, and it lacks an organic feel. So how to choose fonts so that the text is neat and easy to read? When choosing fonts and their parameters during typesetting, we must take into account the task that this element performs at the design level. The key task of the body text is the comfortable perception of its content. The size of the body text varies depending on the product you are working with. For websites, it is usually between 15 and 20 pixels. Not every font is perceived well under such conditions. Long text typed in display or handwritten fonts are difficult to read. This is because their shape is often quite complex. When reduced, they seem to flicker. But how to recognize a font that will work well? Many signs will help to do this. Let's find out which ones. Usually, body text fonts have a simplified outline. They have fewer or almost no decorative elements, no complex serifs, and no strong contrast between the main and auxiliary strokes. Body text fonts are usually more open, that is, they have a wider aperture. This design feature helps them adapt better to small sizes. Also, in fonts that are good for setting body text, lowercase letters are often slightly larger. This allows lowercase letters of small size to be easier to read on a smaller scale. By the way, the height of lowercase letters is sometimes called X height. Also, body texts often occur in fairly narrow formats. For example, on a smartphone display. In this case, to fit more text on one line, it is better to choose fonts that have a narrower character width. So for body text, it is best to choose rather open fonts with a simplified outline, larger lowercase letters, and a moderately narrow width. Taking these features into account, I will use the Lotto font for the body text, since this font is open and also has a simple outline. That is, the font does not contain decorative elements, and it also does not have contrast. Headings and subheadings, however, should quickly convey the essence of the content block and be noticeable in the text. First of all, we achieve this through enlarging the size of the text, which we have already done. A larger size allows you to notice more design features and nuances of the font, so it is worth approaching this choice thoughtfully. When there are many subheadings in the text, due to the excessive decorativeness, it becomes difficult to read decorative fonts. This does not mean that decorative fonts are not suitable for headings at all. It's just better to use them for first-level headings and choose fonts of a simpler form for subheadings. If you have at least 3 levels of text elements, say, a first-level heading, a second-level heading, and body text, you can typeset them all with fonts from the same family. A font family is several fonts that have a common design basis but differ in weight. For example, in this layout for the first-level heading, I will use this font. It has characteristic design features that refer to the theme of my layout, and thus I emphasize the topic of the text. For the second-level heading and all subsequent levels, I will choose fonts from the Lotto family. Like for the body text, I will use bold for the second-level heading, black for the master heading, and regular for the body text and additional details. Moreover, I can use uppercase to separate the master heading. After that, it is worth aligning the top divider line. Note that for long texts, it is better to avoid this type of style since long text in uppercase letters is less readable. I can also add a corresponding icon to my master heading. Using the Command plus space shortcut, I will call the emoji selection panel and add a tennis icon to the master heading. By the way, the readability is also affected by the text line length. If the lines in the block are too long, it becomes more difficult for the reader to concentrate. Choose a balanced line length, approximately 45 to 70 characters. Here, I want the line to have about 60 characters. I will pull the right edge of the text frame and change the frame behavior to auto height. Since the width of the body text frame has changed, it is worth changing the width of the title and the subheading as well. After changing these settings, it is worth returning to the previously defined indent 16 pixels between the subheading and the body text, and also 24 pixels from the bottom divider to neighboring elements. I will also reduce the divider lines according to the updated width of the text frames and align the publication time group along the current right edge of the group. It is also worth slightly changing the size and position of the top divider so that it corresponds to the current proportions of the layout. And since we are already aligning the elements to the right edge, let's also slightly decrease our heading. It will be neat if our heading takes up the width of the current text frame with the body text. If I try to scale the text by pulling the edge of the frame with the Shift key pressed, as I would do for a vector object, it won't be possible to scale it proportionally. This way, I will only increase the size of the text frame. For such fine-tuning of the text size, you can use the Scale tool. I'll activate this tool with the K key and pull the right edge of the bounding box until it aligns with the current right edge of the group elements. This way, the text can be scaled proportionally. Looking at the text section of the design panel, you can see that the font size displays fractional values now. This is best avoided, as it is inconvenient in development. So I round the values up to 40 pixels. The proportions of our layout have changed again, so it is worth readjusting the distances again. Checking the distance from heading to heading, you can also see a fractional value. This can be corrected by looking at the element's properties. For instance, the heading currently has a fractional value in the y-coordinate. I'll round the value up and check the distances. Let's make the distance to the master heading and the bottom group 24 pixels again. All there's left is to place our layout in a format. To do this, you must first determine the size of the external space for the general form text group. Let's show its inner space and the inner space of subgroups inside it using rectangles. For indents, it is worth choosing a size larger than the largest indent between subgroups inside. The largest indent here turned out to be 48 pixels. For the indents, I'll go with 56 pixels, which is 8 pixels more than the largest spacing we have inside the subgroups. For demonstration purposes, I will create 4 squares with sides of 56 pixels and place them along the edges of the layout. Having decided on the dimensions, I can create a frame for them. Selecting the appropriate tool with the F key and creating a frame along the contours of the indents. After creating the frame, you can check the indents with the Alt key and hovering over the edges. Auxiliary elements can now be removed. For each layout that includes text, I also recommend ensuring sufficient contrast between the text and the background. Avoid the colors that are too bright. In such a design, readability deteriorates significantly. In the masterclass materials, you will find links to sites that will help you check the contrast for specific colors. Once you have decided on the appearance and design parameters of the text elements of different levels, it is worth creating a style guide. A style guide is a system of proportional sizes for all levels of text that are found in the layout, from small image captions to first-level headings. It is useful to create such a guide as soon as you start working on the layout. It will be useful for any project, a website, an application, or a poster. In this guide, you note the fonts and individual parameters like weight, size, line spacing, or tracking chosen for each level of text. Check out Figma's guide on typography systems. It might come in handy. In many modern graphics editors, such a guide can be created within the text settings. In Figma, it can be created using styles. A style is a saved set of formatting options that can be applied to text. Styles help to unify the layout formatting and increase the efficiency of working with it. You can apply a text style to an entire text layer or a range of text within it. To create a text style from any text layer that has the properties you want to use, select the layer. In the text section of the right sidebar, click the icon with 4 circles, Styles. Click plus to create a new style. Give the style a name, for example, H1, a description. This is a heading 1 and click Create Style to apply it. Descriptions are mainly needed for the convenience of organizing projects and working together. Click the Create Style button. Once you have created at least one style in a file, you can view the Local Styles section and the Text Styles subsection on the right sidebar. This means that the style has been successfully saved in the project. You can also create a new style here. Click one of the plus signs. You will notice that styles can also be applied to a color, effect, or grid. We will talk about grids in the next module. For now, let's create the next text style. Choose text. Set the name H2, the description. This is a heading 2 and the heading parameters, and click Create Style. This style is now displayed in the local styles of the project as well. Text styles can be applied to any text layer. If the style is in the current file, you can use it anywhere in that file. For example, let's choose our subheading. Go to the local styles, click the styles icon, and select H2. You can change the properties of a style you have created at any time. From the right sidebar, click on an empty spot on the canvas to make sure you have nothing selected. On the right sidebar, you will see a list of local styles. Hover over the style you want to edit. Click the settings icon to open the style editing window. Make changes to the style properties. You can see a preview of the changes in the window up top. Click anywhere outside the window to save the changes. When you edit, your changes are immediately applied to any text layers that use that style. You can also make changes from the Style Selection section. Select a text layer. It doesn't have to be the exact text style you want to edit. In the text section of the right sidebar, click the style icon. Hover over the style you want to edit. Click the settings icon to open the editing window. Here you can make changes to the style properties as well. You can detach the style from the text in the text section of the design panel using the corresponding button, Detach Style. I will undo this action with the Command+C shortcut. You can also create and apply color styles to text layers and more. For example, by going to the Fill setting and clicking the same style icon, followed by plus, you can create a style for the color. Let's call it green. Now the text has a color style applied. We can also apply it to the divider. By changing the color parameters in the styles list, we will change the color of all the elements to which this style is applied. And if you want to, you can also create styles with effects. Finally, I will rename the frame. To do this, I will select it on the workspace. Use the Command+R shortcut for renaming and enter a relevant name. Now the project is ready for export. Congrats! You've just unlocked the power to create clean and user-friendly text layouts that are also visually appealing. In the next module, we'll take our layout to the next level. We'll explore grids, quotes, and more to further enhance the design and functionality of your texts.